Ah, Kim is here. Amazing.
Rob,
Buddy.
my man, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah, when I swing, I put that fire to your chest. Talking ass, better wear a fucking vest.
I'm gonna pull up this chapter. Hold on. This is Romans 1. What now?
I don't know off the top of my head. Just in the chat. It's not a long chapter.
Romans. Okay, hold on.
When Paul talks about those who suppress the truth in righteousness, but Paul elsewhere, I don't remember off the top of my head, but talks about those who have consciences, those who have, as though they've been seared with a hot iron. So basically, I think Paul's argument is that atheism is basically the dumbing down of conscience over time.
Okay, here we go. So
I'm going to paraphrase.
1:18, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of the people who suppress the truth by their wickedness.
Yeah.
Since what may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them.
Yeah.
That last bit, because God has made it plain to them. I take objection to that. I would not agree that even if I grant that the God that you worship, right, exists in a tangible physical sense.
Sure.
I would not agree that he has made this fact plain to me. Or to anyone, for that matter. Plain is a very specific.
It basically means he's made it obvious to all that he's real and alive.
Right, but I would disagree that that's the case. I would disagree that he has made it obvious. And I think a lot of people on Earth would disagree that he's made it obvious.
Yeah, but our disagreement doesn't make it true.
What do you mean?
Because we disagree with something, like say, for example, if you disagree with me that I'm wearing a brown sweater, that doesn't make it true, because I can see that I'm wearing a brown sweater.
I mean, yeah, but why would God allow for that disagreement to happen?
Why
wouldn't God make it clear to everyone? That's what I mean.
There's a simple answer and a complex answer. I think the simple answer is like humans, God desires relationship. But like humans, God allows the relationship to exist or not to exist. Like it's not coerced, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
That's
an interesting point. That's an interesting point.
God wants people to pursue him, and the Bible makes that clear too.
So he gives us the free choice to not pursue him, though.
Absolutely.
And so what happens to people who don't pursue him just out of their own personal preference? They just decide that it's not for them.
That differs too, because there are people who are moral agents everyone's a moral agent. Sure. But you can live a moral life without God in it. But everyone's proclivities and temptations. But
if denying God by itself is some sort of serious offense, right?
As to God it is, yeah.
Right. So then there is no free choice, right? Because
I think that's
either I take what I'm told, or I do what I'm told, or I'm punished. That's not a free choice.
So let me give you an analogy.
Sure, I'm listening.
Okay, so if I'm in a relationship with a woman and she wants me to take the garbage out or do something for her, but say I forget, and then she won't go for dinner with me because I forgot. Now, is the consequence of the action mean I didn't have the choice, or does it mean there's consequences for our choices?
Okay, but there's a distinct difference here, right? There's the natural.
I'm not disputing there's a difference, but I'm just using it as an equivocation.
Sure, but I don't think it's a fair equivocation.
Okay, fair enough.
Because the difference here is we're talking about natural consequences, right? People reacting to their environment as it changes, and then explicitly punishing someone for making a decision.
Okay,
right. So there are artificial, imposed consequences. I'm going to do this to you.
Yeah. And
there are the natural consequences of, you didn't do this thing for me, so I no longer feel valued in this relationship.
Actually, I have a good. Actually, I don't know if have you ever heard of Todd Friel?
No.
Anyway, so he gave this kind of like a hierarchy of values system for punishment that sets up, I think, a good case for God's morality and why we should think it's fair. Okay, for example, we said he asked questions. He said, if I lied to my dog, what's going to happen? Nothing. If I lied to my daughter, what's going to happen? Nothing. If I lied to my wife, what's going to happen? I sleep in the doghouse. If I lie in court, what's going to happen? I go to jail. See, so what you see is an increase of authority as it goes up the hierarchy of authority and power. And God being at the top, the consequences for what we do against the nature and person of God are that much more serious than what we see. I think the problem for us, Ken, is that we equate justice, human justice, with God's justice, but we can't do that because God is so much more powerful and authoritative than us that we have to separate.
Well, I'm not even talking about justice yet, right?
Okay, no,
that's a further problem down the road.
okay. Well, I'm more or less
talking about the nature of this offer, right? The
yeah.
nature of
What
this
I mean,
offer
but
is coercive.
God's justice and punishment are go hand in hand. That's why I'm talking.
Sure, but again, that's one step down the line, right? We're not
course.
at that point yet. I'm talking about the nature of this offer, right? Which is
Okay.
essentially coercive, because there is no free option. There is no situation in which I can say, "Listen, man, I don't really want to be a part of this system that you've created."
Well, I think you're confusing. It's an ultimatum is not a still gives you a choice. It's just
Not if there's a threat of force attached to one of the two available options. That's not a choice. And there is a threat of force at the end.
So
of the
right now,
option.
do we have a choice in this conversation?
Yeah, essentially, because we are on equal footing as moral agents, right?
Yeah,
we're both like
not on equal footing with God.
Consenting to this interaction, but I did not consent to the interaction between me and God.
Well, okay,
well, no, I mean, but seriously, that's the fundamental difference here, is that I did not consent to that.
Well,
and so anything that God does for me is ultimately an imposition because I did not ask for it. I did not consent to it. I signed no contract.
Did you consent to your parents having sex and conceiving
you? No,
did you
absolutely
consent?
Not.
So I'm just saying, there's a whole bunch of things we don't consent to that happen. Like,
yes,
and they're all bad. Pathetic argument is what I'm trying to say.
No. Hold on, right? Because from in your world, right, in your reality, if we apply this consent standard, that's a problem. In my reality, it isn't, right?
But I'm just saying,
because we're talking about individuals that can be held accountable here. You and I can hold each other accountable.
Yeah,
I can't hold God accountable.
I'm just saying the consent argument for God is probably not a one you want to have, Ken.
Well, I'm having it.
Okay.
Does
God need our? Here's the thing: does God need your consent, my consent to do anything?
I would say yes. If it involves me as a moral, as an entity that exists, anytime I do anything to you, it ought to be consensual, right? Anytime you do anything to another person, it ought to be consensual.
Okay,
let's apply this standard that we apply to everyone.
Okay, let me use this analogy. If I create this cell phone, does this? Let's say hypothetically, the cell phone was
sapient,
alive. Let's say if I was able to make a human being.
Yes.
Do I need, as the creator of that human being, to ask my own creation what I want to do?
Yeah. Well, what you want to do with them, yes. If it concerns them and their autonomy.
So let me get this straight. I'm the programmer, but I have to consent to the consent of my creation.
Hold on. You don't consent to other people's consent, man. That's not how that works, right?
Okay. Then maybe when you do something, then. Okay. I think it's at the height of hubris to think that God needs our consent about anything.
I think it's the height of arrogance to assume that anyone doesn't need consent to act upon other entities.
Okay.
The idea that seriously, the idea, right, that just because you create something that is alive and sentient and sapient and autonomous, that you have a sovereign right over that thing, that seems really sketchy to me, right? Do you have that sovereign right over your children? Because you created them. Are you allowed to domineer their lives, to create, to do whatever they? So why does God have that right with us? Are we not God's children?
But the thing is, God is actually granting you what you want. He's saying, you don't want me in my life. You don't have to have me in my life. So He's granting you the very thing.
But as a punishment, as a corollary to that decision, I am punished with eternal hellfire.
Okay.
I mean, unless you don't believe in that version of hell, in which case I can change my argument, right?
Version.
But
I missed something over the fan here.
So do you believe in a literal hell?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what does that hell look like to you? Is it fire and brimstone, or is it just a permanent
I think the
disconnection
Bible
from
uses
God?
metaphors like it could be fire and brimstone, and it could also be it could be a lake of fire. It could be a lot of things. But the thing about hell that's most prominent is hell is where the absence of God is. There's no life. There's no revelation. It's just eternal conscious torment.
Okay, but that is that the place where people who decline God's offer go when they die?
According to the Bible, yeah.
According to you, what do you
According
personally?
to the Bible, I agree with the Bible. That's what the Bible
Okay,
says.
okay, that's what the Bible says,
Yeah.
and you don't see a problem with that.
I don't.
You don't see a problem with that offer being given, and
Because we have the choice to choose God.
but if you're being threatened with eternal torment, is it really a choice?
Yeah, we all deserve torment. So I think that the fact that we have the option of grace is like, well, he's throwing us a lifeline. You want to grab it or not? It's up to you.
Why do we deserve eternal torment?
Because we've violated God's perfect moral law.
By doing, like, what do you mean we? Who's we?
The entire human species.
What did the entire human species do collectively that pissed off God that bad?
Any type of sin. Any sin. Well, it could be lying, stealing, adultery. Yeah, the Ten Commandments. Go to the Ten Commandments. Any one of those things in God's eyes is worthy of eternal death.
Okay. Would you agree that God creates humans as they are?
Yes and no.
You okay? Explain.
Well, God created us perfectly, and we chose to give God the finger, and now we're paying the price.
We
live with created value as creations of God, but we're also living with a sin nature. It's dual. We're living with dual natures.
Okay, but all of that is a product of God's creation, right? Hold on. This should not. This is the wrong orientation. All of that is a product of God's creation, though, right? Like that's
God created us perfectly moral and gave us free agency.
Okay, so then where does the sin come from?
Us choosing to rebel against God's standard. Flipping God off.
Okay. Why would God give us the ability to flip him off?
Because he wanted relationship, not robotic autonomy.
Why? That seems like an inferior choice.
Well,
it seems like an inferior choice to create things that have the ability to hate you.
Well, I mean, think of it this way: if I'm in a relationship with someone, the only way I can be faithful is to have the option to be unfaithful, right? The only way I can love is at the option of hate. The only way I can give myself sacrificially is if I have the option to be selfish. And the same works with us and God. The only way we can have a relationship with God is to have the option to not have a relationship with God.
Okay, but we don't have that option.
We do.
No, we don't. We are coerced into having that relationship.
Well, if it was a coercion, everyone would be having it.
How isn't it a coercion? I mean, we're just back at the same problem, right?
I think you're conflating coercion with ultimatum.
An ultimatum is a kind of coercion. It's a threat. Like just explicitly, it's a threat. I will do this to you if you do not conform to this standard.
But he didn't. He made a way. So I don't know. For me, this is a non-issue because maybe just because maybe my upbringing, my background, whatever. But for me, it's a non-issue because I believe that we all deserve eternal torment anyways, and God was gracious enough to give us a lifeline. So my sense of that is choose the lifeline. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.